Imagine being invited somewhere, not to be honored, not to be respected, but to be embarrassed in front of a whole crowd. That was what happened to Denise. Denise worked as a janitor. She cleaned floors, wiped windows, carried trash, and kept quiet. Most people didn't see her. Some walked past her like she wasn't even there. To many of them, she was almost like part of the building furniture. So when the invitation came, it felt strange, almost like a dream. It was the wedding of the powerful CEO and the most arrogant woman Denise had ever seen in her life. But what Denise did not know was that this invitation carried poison. It was not a gift, it was a trap. But life has a funny way of turning things around, because on that wedding day, the woman they expected to laugh at, the one they thought would be the joke, walked in like royalty, in a dress that cost more than some people's homes, with a presence that made the entire Grand Magnolia Estate go silent. What happened next? Nobody could have imagined. Before we begin, tell us where you are watching from. Drop it in the comments. Have you ever felt invisible in your own life? Enjoy the story. The sound of heels clicked across the shiny marble floor. The floor was so clean that it reflected the bright crystal lights hanging from the ceiling. Expensive cars kept driving in and out of the building's private entrance. Inside that tall office tower, money was everywhere. People did not just have wealth, they showed it off proudly. Workers moved around fast, talking on phones, carrying leather bags, discussing big business deals. Everyone there looked like they belonged, except Denise. She wore old cleaning gloves and pushed her cleaning cart slowly. Her head was always down, but her back stayed straight. She was 42 years old. Her hands showed her whole life story, full of work, pain, sacrifice, and strength. She knew every part of that building, every stain, every window, every quiet corner. And funny enough, she also knew many secrets. People like to talk when they think nobody is listening. And Denise always said to herself, when people don't notice you, you hear everything. But there was one person who always made sure Denise remembered her place: Carolyn. Carolyn Jaynes was the CEO's wife. She was young, beautiful, rich, and very rude. She walked around like she owned the building and the people inside it. Her heels were always designer, her makeup was always perfect, her smile was cold. One day, she looked at Denise and said, "Be careful where you clean. This floor costs more than your entire year's salary." Denise swallowed the insult. She needed her job. Bills don't care about pride. Life doesn't stop because someone disrespects you. But today felt different. Carolyn's eyes looked sharper, colder, crueler. Denise noticed Carolyn walking toward her with some of her friends. They were all the same, proud, loud, and looking down on others. Carolyn held a small cream-colored envelope and walked like she was showing off. Denise quietly stepped aside like she always did. She did not want trouble, but she didn't know that what was about to happen would change everything. Carolyn crossed her arms and gave that fake smile. Denise had been cleaning the same building for 3 years. 3 long years of early mornings and late nights. She knew the rhythm of that place better than anyone. She arrived before the sun came up, when the city was still quiet and the streets were empty. By the time the first worker walked through those glass doors, the floors were already shining. The windows were spotless. The trash cans were emptied. Everything looked perfect, as if it cleaned itself. That was how they liked it. Clean but invisible. Results without the person. Denise understood this very well. In a world full of expensive suits and important meetings, a woman with a mop was just part of the background. She moved through hallways like a shadow, quiet and unnoticed. Sometimes people would walk right into her cart and look annoyed, as if she was the one in the way, as if she didn't belong there. But Denise was used to it. She had learned to make herself small, to keep her head down, to avoid eye contact. It was safer that way. Safer to be invisible than to be seen and judged. Because when people like them looked at people like her, they didn't see a person. They saw a uniform, a job, a service. Her day always started the same way. She would push her cart to the executive floor, where the big offices were. That was where the real money lived. leather chairs that cost more than her rent, desks made of wood from trees she couldn't even pronounce, paintings on the walls that looked like someone spilled paint and called it art. She would clean around their things carefully, making sure not to touch anything important, not to leave any trace that she was ever there. The executives barely noticed her. They would talk on their phones, laugh loudly, make plans for lunch at restaurants Denise had only seen from the outside. Sometimes they would talk about their problems, rich people problems, like which vacation home to visit or which car to buy next. Denise would just keep wiping, keep moving, keep quiet. When people don't notice you, you hear everything. And she heard a lot. She heard office affairs, business secrets, family drama, lies told to wives and husbands. She heard it all, but she never said a word. What was the point? Who would believe a janitor anyway? Who would even listen? Most days, Denise didn't mind being invisible. It was easier, safer. It meant no drama, no trouble, no one bothering her. But some days it hurt. Some days she wanted to scream, to remind them that she was human too, that she had a name, that she had a story, that once upon a time she was somebody. But those days she just pushed her cart a little faster and tried not to think too much, because thinking too much about the past only made the present harder to survive, and Denise was a survivor. She had survived worse than being invisible, much worse. So she kept her head down, did her job, and told herself that this was temporary, that one day things would be different. She just didn't know how soon that day would come, or how much it would cost her to step back into the light. Carolyn Jaynes arrived every morning at exactly 10 o'clock. Never earlier, never later. She didn't work in the building. She didn't have to. Her husband, Edwin Boyd, was the CEO, and that made her royalty in this place. She would walk through those glass doors like she owned them, her heels clicking against the marble floor with a sound that announced her presence to everyone. Those heels were always designer, always new, always expensive. Denise had learned to recognize the sound. It was sharper than other heels, more demanding. It was the sound of someone who wanted to be noticed, who needed to be noticed. And everyone did notice. Workers would straighten up when they heard her coming. Assistants would rush to open doors. Security would smile and greet her by name. But Carolyn never smiled back. Not really. She had a smile, yes, but it was cold, empty. The kind of smile that didn't reach the eyes. The kind that made you feel smaller just by looking at it. She was beautiful, there was no denying that. Tall and slim, with perfect skin and hair that looked like it had its own lighting crew. She wore clothes that probably cost more than Denise made in 6 months. Everything about her screamed wealth, power, and privilege. And she knew it. She wore her beauty and money like armor, using it to cut down anyone she thought was beneath her, which, in Carolyn's mind, was almost everyone, but especially people like Denise. People who served, people who cleaned, people who were supposed to be invisible. The first time Carolyn really spoke to Denise was 6 months ago. Denise had been cleaning the executive lounge when Carolyn walked in with some of her friends. They were all dressed up, heading to lunch somewhere fancy. They were laughing about something, their voices loud and careless. Denise had tried to finish quickly and get out of their way, but Carolyn stopped her. "Excuse me," Carolyn had said, her voice sweet but sharp. "You missed a spot." She pointed at the floor with one perfectly manicured finger. Denise looked. There was no spot. The floor was spotless. But she apologized anyway and wiped it again. Carolyn watched her with that cold smile, then turned to her friends and said loud enough for everyone to hear, "Some people just don't have an eye for detail. I suppose that's why they do what they do." Her friends had laughed. Denise had kept wiping, her face burning with shame. From that day on, Carolyn made it her personal mission to remind Denise of her place. Every time she saw her, there was a comment, a look, a deliberate humiliation. "Be careful with that cart. These tiles are imported from Italy. They cost more than you make in a year." Or, "Try not to use too much cleaner. The smell is quite strong and some of us have sensitive noses." Or, "Honestly, I don't know why they hire people who can barely speak proper English." That last one had hurt the most. Denise spoke perfectly fine English. She had a college degree. She had run a foundation. But Carolyn didn't know that, didn't care to know. To her, Denise was just the help, just another face in the background, just someone to look down on to make herself feel bigger. And today, as Carolyn walked toward her with that cream-colored envelope and those cold eyes, Denise knew something bad was coming. She could feel it in her bones, the way a storm feels different in the air before it hits. Carolyn was coming for her, and this time it was going to be worse than usual. Carolyn stopped right in front of Denise's cart. Her friends gathered around her like an audience waiting for a show. They were all the same type. Designer clothes, expensive jewelry, faces that had never known real struggle. They looked at Denise the way people look at something amusing, something entertaining, something less than human. Denise kept her eyes down and tried to move her cart aside, but Carolyn stepped closer, blocking her path. "Wait," Carolyn said, her voice bright and fake. "I have something for you." She held up the cream-colored envelope, waving it slightly like it was a prize. Her friends giggled, covering their mouths with their hands like they were in on some private joke. Denise felt her stomach tighten. Something was wrong. People like Carolyn didn't give people like her anything except orders and insults. "Ma'am, I'm working," Denise said quietly, trying to keep her voice steady. "I should get back to—" "Oh, don't be silly," Carolyn interrupted, her smile growing wider. "This will only take a moment. You see, Edwin and I are getting married. Well, remarried, actually, renewing our vows at the Grand Magnolia Estate. It's going to be the event of the year. Black tie, champagne, live orchestra, the works." She said each word slowly, making sure Denise understood just how grand and expensive it would be, how far above her it was. One of her friends leaned in, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "The guest list is very exclusive, only the most important people in the city." The others nodded, their eyes shining with cruel amusement. Denise wanted to walk away, to push her cart past them and disappear, but she was trapped, surrounded, on display. Carolyn held out the envelope, dangling it in front of Denise like bait. "And we thought, why not invite everyone who makes this building run, including you?" She emphasized the last word, her voice mocking. "After all, you work so hard. You deserve to see how the other half lives. Don't you think, ladies?" Her friends erupted in laughter. Not real laughter, the kind that cuts, the kind meant to wound. Denise stared at the envelope, her hands gripping her cart so tight her knuckles hurt. This was a trap. She knew it. They knew it. Everyone standing there knew it. But what could she do? Refuse and be called ungrateful? Accept and walk into whatever humiliation they had planned? "Take it," Carolyn said, pushing the envelope closer. "Unless you're too busy cleaning floors to attend a wedding at the most prestigious estate in the state." Her eyes glittered with malice. "Or maybe you don't have anything appropriate to wear?" Her friends laughed harder. One of them whispered loud enough for everyone to hear. "Can you imagine? She'll probably show up in her uniform." They all found this hilarious, bending over with laughter, holding on to each other for support. Denise's face burned, her heart pounded. Every instinct told her to run, but her hand reached out slowly and took the envelope. It felt heavy, heavier than paper should feel. Carolyn's smile turned triumphant. "Wonderful," she said, her voice sickly sweet. "We'll see you there, Saturday evening, 7 o'clock sharp. Don't be late, and do try to look presentable." With that, Carolyn turned on her designer heels and walked away, her friends following behind her, their laughter echoing through the hallway. Denise stood there alone, holding the envelope, feeling like the whole world was watching her humiliation. Her hands trembled as she looked down at the elegant gold lettering on the front. She didn't need to open it to know what this was. This wasn't an invitation, it was a trap, a golden trap designed to destroy whatever dignity she had left. And the worst part? She had just walked right into it.
Denise made it through the rest of her shift on autopilot. She cleaned, she wiped, she emptied trash cans. She did everything she was supposed to do. But inside, she was breaking. The envelope sat in her pocket like a stone, heavy and cold, reminding her with every step that she had been marked for humiliation. When she finally got home to her small apartment, the tears came. She didn't even make it to the couch. She just slid down against the door and cried. Big, ugly sobs that shook her whole body. She cried for the embarrassment. She cried for the laughter. She cried for the life she was living and the life she had lost. Most of all, she cried because she felt so small, so powerless, so invisible. Did you know that the invisibility of labor is a sociological term for how society ignores those who keep our world clean? People who clean buildings, who cook food, who drive buses, who make the world function are often treated as if they don't exist, as if the work does itself. Denise had become a living example of this invisibility, and it hurt more than any insult ever could. After a while, the tears stopped. Not because the pain stopped, but because she had no more tears left. She sat there on the floor, exhausted, empty, staring at nothing. The apartment was quiet, except for the sound of her breathing and the distant traffic outside. This was her life now. Small apartment, small paycheck, small existence. Invisible. But then something inside her stirred. A memory, a feeling, a voice from long ago that said, "Denise Lasley, you are not defined by what happens to you. You are defined by what you do about it." It was her mother's voice, strong, proud, unbreakable. The same mother who had built a foundation to help others. The same mother who had taught Denise that dignity was not something anyone could take away unless you gave it to them.
Denise pushed herself up from the floor and walked to her bedroom closet. In the back, buried under old clothes and forgotten things, was a wooden box. She hadn't opened it in years, couldn't bear to. It held too much pain, too many memories of who she used to be. But tonight, something was different. Tonight, she needed to remember. She pulled the box out and sat on her bed, running her fingers over the carved wood. Her father had made this box for her when she became director of the Adabio Foundation. Inside were photographs, newspaper clippings, awards, letters of gratitude from people she had helped, evidence of a life that mattered, evidence that she was once somebody. With trembling hands, she opened the lid. The first thing she saw was a photograph of herself at a charity gala. She was wearing an elegant dress, standing next to her parents, smiling with real joy. She looked confident, powerful, important. She looked like someone who belonged. Behind that photo was her foundation director badge. Then a newspaper article with the headline, "Adabio Foundation raises over $2 million for community education programs." Denise touched the photo, tracing the face of the woman she used to be. That woman wouldn't have cried on the floor. That woman wouldn't have let Carolyn Jaynes make her feel small. That woman was a fighter, a builder, a queen. And suddenly, Denise understood something. She wasn't invited to that wedding to be laughed at. She was invited to be broken, to be reminded that she was nothing, to be put in her place. But what Carolyn didn't know, what none of them knew, was that Denise Lasley had already been broken once, and she had survived. She picked up her phone and scrolled through her old contacts until she found the name she was looking for. Jennifer, her old friend, the fashion designer, the one person from her past life who had never stopped calling, never stopped checking in, never stopped believing that Denise would rise again. Denise took a deep breath and pressed call. When Jennifer answered, Denise's voice was steady, strong, different. "Jennifer," she said, "I need your help. It's time." On the other end, there was a pause. Then Jennifer's voice came through, warm and knowing. "I've been waiting for this call for 3 years. Tell me everything." Jennifer lived on the other side of the city, in one of those neighborhoods where the streets were lined with trees and the houses had gates. She had made a name for herself as a fashion designer, dressing celebrities, politicians, and anyone who could afford her prices. But before all that, before the fame and the money, she had been Denise's college roommate. They had shared dreams, struggles, late-night talks about changing the world. They had been sisters in every way that mattered. When Denise's life fell apart, when her parents died and the foundation collapsed, Jennifer had tried to help. She had offered money, a place to stay, connections, anything. But Denise had been too broken, too ashamed, too lost in her grief. She had pushed Jennifer away, disappeared into the shadows, convinced that she didn't deserve rescue. But Jennifer had never given up. She called every month, left messages, sent texts, always the same message: "I'm here when you're ready." Now, sitting on her bed with the wooden box open and the wedding invitation on her nightstand, Denise was finally ready. She told Jennifer everything: about Carolyn, about the invitation, about the trap, about the years of being invisible. Her voice shook at first, but grew stronger with each word. And Jennifer listened, really listened, not with pity, but with understanding. When Denise finished, there was a long silence on the other end. Then Jennifer spoke, her voice low and fierce. "That woman has no idea who she just challenged." Denise could hear the smile in her voice. "Do you remember what we used to say in college when women like us walk into a room?" Denise smiled through her tears. "We don't enter, we arrive." "Exactly," Jennifer said. "And you, my dear friend, are about to arrive at the Grand Magnolia Estate like the queen you've always been. Carolyn Jaynes wants a show, we'll give her a show, but not the one she's expecting." They talked for over an hour, planning, strategizing, remembering. Jennifer asked questions about the venue, the dress code, the guest list. She took notes, her designer mind already working, already seeing the vision. "Black tie, you said, at the Grand Magnolia?" Jennifer laughed, a sound full of confidence and power. "Oh, this is going to be perfect. That venue has a white marble entrance with a red carpet that goes up those grand stairs. Every guest walks through those doors like they're royalty, and that's exactly what you're going to do."
"Jennifer, I can't afford," Denise started, but Jennifer cut her off. "Stop. This isn't about money. This is about justice. This is about reminding the world who Denise Lasley is. You helped hundreds of people when you ran that foundation. You changed lives. You gave scholarships to kids who had nothing. You built community centers. You were a force, and you still are. You just forgot for a little while." Denise felt something warm spreading through her chest. Hope. Real hope. For the first time in 3 years, she didn't feel invisible. She felt seen, understood, valued. "Come to my studio tomorrow after your shift," Jennifer said. "We have work to do. And Denise, bring that photograph from the box, the one from the gala. I need to see the woman you used to be so I can help you remember her." "What if I can't?" Denise whispered. "What if I've been invisible for too long?" "Then we'll make you impossible to ignore," Jennifer said firmly. "Trust me, by the time we're done, when you walk into that wedding, every single person in that room will remember your name, especially Carolyn Jaynes. See you tomorrow." When they hung up, Denise sat in the quiet of her apartment, holding her phone, feeling something she hadn't felt in years: power. Not the kind that comes from money or status, the kind that comes from knowing who you are and refusing to let anyone make you forget it again. Jennifer's studio was in a converted warehouse with floor-to-ceiling windows that let in streams of natural light. Fabrics hung everywhere, rich velvets, silks, satins in every color imaginable. Mannequins stood like silent witnesses, dressed in half-finished gowns. This was Jennifer's kingdom, and she ruled it with vision and passion. When Denise arrived after her shift, still wearing her cleaning uniform, Jennifer was waiting. She looked at Denise for a long moment, not with pity, but with the eyes of an artist seeing a masterpiece waiting to be revealed. "Take off that uniform," she said gently. "You're never wearing it again." Denise hesitated. "But I still have work tomorrow." "No," Jennifer said firmly. "You're calling in sick for the rest of the week. This is more important. This is about reclaiming yourself. Now let me see you." Denise changed into the simple dress Jennifer handed her. When she came out, Jennifer circled her slowly, studying her from every angle. "You've been hiding," she said. "Hunched shoulders, downcast eyes, making yourself small. But your body remembers. Look." She guided Denise to a full-length mirror. At first, Denise wanted to look away. She hadn't really looked at herself in years, but Jennifer stood behind her, hands on her shoulders. "See her? That's Denise Lasley, director of the Adabio Foundation, woman who raised millions for her community, daughter of warriors. She's still in there."
Over the next 3 days, Jennifer worked like a woman possessed. She took Denise to her private stylist, who worked magic with her hair, bringing out its natural shine and volume. Then to a makeup artist, who taught Denise how to enhance her features without hiding them. "You're not putting on a mask," Jennifer kept saying. "You're revealing what was always there."
But the dress was Jennifer's masterpiece. She had designed it specifically for Denise, using the photo from the gala as inspiration, but making it even more powerful. It was a golden gown that seemed to capture light itself, form-fitting with a tasteful slit that spoke of confidence, not desperation. The neckline was elegant, regal. When Denise first tried it on, she gasped. "That's the sound I was waiting for," Jennifer said, smiling. But the transformation wasn't just physical. Jennifer made Denise walk across the studio floor over and over. Head up, shoulders back. You don't walk into a room, you command it. You don't ask for space, you take it. Women like you do not bow. "Women like me?" Denise asked, her voice uncertain. "Women who have survived," Jennifer said, her eyes intense. "Women who have been knocked down and got back up. Women who know their worth even when the world tries to convince them otherwise. Women like us." She took Denise's hands. "Listen to me. What Carolyn did was cruel, but she gave you something without knowing it. She gave you a stage, and on Saturday night, you're going to walk onto that stage and remind everyone who you are." Denise practiced her walk again, and this time something shifted. Her spine straightened, not because Jennifer told her to, but because she felt it. Her chin lifted, her eyes focused forward. She moved across the floor with purpose, with grace, with power. And when she caught her reflection in the mirror, she barely recognized herself. No, that wasn't right. She finally recognized herself again. Jennifer stood back, tears in her eyes. "There she is. There's my queen." On Saturday evening, as Denise stood in front of the mirror in her apartment, wearing the golden dress with her hair and makeup perfect, she whispered to her reflection, "Denise Lasley, it's time to arrive." And for the first time in 3 years, she smiled like she meant it. Jennifer insisted on driving Denise to the wedding herself. "You're not arriving in a taxi," she had said. "Queens don't take taxis." So they pulled up to the Grand Magnolia Estate in Jennifer's sleek black car, the kind that whispered money without shouting it. The estate was exactly as Carolyn had described. Grand, massive, intimidating. White marble columns stood like sentinels at the entrance. Crystal chandeliers blazed through the tall windows. The famous red carpet stretched from the circular driveway up the wide stairs to the main doors. Guests were arriving in expensive cars, emerging in tuxedos and evening gowns, laughing and greeting each other like they owned the world. Denise felt her courage waver for just a moment. "What if," she started, but Jennifer reached over and squeezed her hand. "No, no what ifs. You are Denise Lasley. You belong anywhere you choose to be. Now, are you ready?" Denise took a deep breath and nodded. Jennifer pulled the car up to the red carpet, right behind a silver Rolls-Royce. A valet rushed over to open the door. This was it, the moment. Denise could feel eyes turning toward the car, curious about who was arriving. She heard the murmur of voices, the click of heels on marble, the soft music drifting from inside. The car door opened. Denise extended one leg, her golden heel touching the red carpet first. Then she rose and the world went silent. It wasn't immediate. First, there was just curiosity, another guest arriving. But as Denise stood to her full height and the light caught her golden dress, making it shimmer like liquid sun, something shifted. Heads turned. Conversation stopped mid-sentence. Someone dropped their champagne glass and it shattered on the marble, but no one seemed to notice. Denise stood there for a moment, letting them look, letting them see. Her dress hugged her curves perfectly, elegant and powerful. Her hair framed her face in soft waves. Her makeup was flawless, highlighting her natural beauty rather than hiding it. Diamond earrings, borrowed from Jennifer, caught the light. But it wasn't the dress or the jewelry or the hair that made everyone stare. It was the way she carried herself, head high, shoulders back, eyes forward. She didn't walk like someone who hoped to be accepted. She walked like someone who had every right to be there. Jennifer had stayed in the car, watching through the window with tears of pride in her eyes. This was Denise's moment. She had to walk it alone. Denise took her first step up the red carpet, then another. The silence followed her like a wave. People stood frozen, staring, trying to understand what they were seeing. The janitor? No, impossible. This woman looked like royalty. This woman looked like money. This woman looked like power. At the top of the stairs, standing near the entrance with her group of friends, was Carolyn. She had been laughing at something, champagne in hand, but when she turned and saw Denise walking up the red carpet, her face went pale. Her mouth opened slightly, the champagne glass tilted in her hand, forgotten. Denise climbed each step with purpose, her dress flowing behind her like a golden river. She didn't smile. She didn't need to. Her presence said everything. When she reached the top of the stairs, she was at eye level with Carolyn. For a moment, neither woman spoke. They just looked at each other. Denise, radiant and powerful. Carolyn, shocked and speechless. Then, Denise did something Carolyn never expected. She smiled. Not a nervous smile, not an apologetic smile. A smile that said, "You wanted me here, well, here I am." And without a word, she walked past Carolyn into the Grand Magnolia Estate, leaving silence and shock in her wake. Inside the Grand Magnolia, the ballroom was breathtaking. Crystal chandeliers hung from painted ceilings. White roses filled every corner. A string quartet played soft music while waiters moved through the crowd with trays of champagne. The elite of the city stood in clusters, talking, laughing, showing off their wealth and connections. This was their world, and they were comfortable in it. But when Denise walked in, that comfort shifted. People turned to look. Whispers started. Who was she? Where did she come from? That dress must have cost a fortune. She walked through the crowd with quiet confidence, accepting a glass of champagne from a passing waiter. She didn't try to blend in or hide. She simply existed, fully and completely in that space. Carolyn had followed her inside, her face still pale, her eyes tracking Denise's every move. Her friends gathered around her, confused. "Who is that?" one of them asked. "She looks familiar, doesn't she?" Carolyn's jaw tightened. She couldn't admit the truth, couldn't say that this stunning woman was the janitor she had invited as a joke. It would make her look foolish. So she said nothing, just watched with growing unease. Denise stood near the edge of the ballroom, sipping her champagne, when she heard a voice behind her. "Excuse me." She turned to see a distinguished older man in a perfectly tailored tuxedo. His hair was silver, his face kind but sharp. He was studying her with intense curiosity. "Forgive me for staring, but you look remarkably familiar. Have we met before?" Denise's heart began to race. This was the moment when her past and present collided. She looked at the man more carefully, and recognition sparked. Dr. Marcus Hamilton. He had been on the board of the Adabio Foundation. He had attended several of their galas. He had shaken her hand and called her work extraordinary. "Perhaps," Denise said carefully, her voice steady despite her pounding heart.
Dr. Hamilton's eyes widened. He looked at her more closely, and suddenly his face transformed with recognition. "My God!" he said, his voice rising with shock and delight. "Denise? Denise Lasley?" The name echoed through the nearby crowd. Several heads turned. "Denise Lasley from the Adabio Foundation?" The effect was immediate. People nearby stopped talking. The name meant something to them. Denise Lasley, the Adabio Foundation. Some of them had attended her charity events years ago. Some had donated. Some had read about her work in the papers. A woman in a red dress gasped. "The Adabio Foundation? You mean the one that helped build those community centers?" "The same one," Dr. Hamilton said, his voice carrying across the room. "This woman raised over $2 million for education programs. She was one of the most respected philanthropists in the city before—" He stopped, realizing he was about to mention her disappearance. "Well, we all wondered what happened to you." More people gathered now, drawn by the commotion. Denise felt their eyes on her, but this time it was different. They weren't looking at a janitor. They were looking at someone who mattered, someone who had made a difference. "Denise Lasley," another voice said. A woman in diamonds stepped forward. "I donated to your foundation. You personally thanked me in a handwritten note. I still have it." She looked around at the crowd. "This woman changed lives." Carolyn stood frozen across the room, her face now completely white. Her friends were staring at her with dawning understanding. One of them leaned in and whispered, "Wait, isn't that the cleaning woman you invited? You said she was just—" But Carolyn couldn't answer. She couldn't speak. The trap she had set had just closed around her instead. Dr. Hamilton took Denise's hand warmly. "It's an honor to see you again. We've missed you. The city has missed you." Then he turned to the crowd and said loud enough for everyone to hear, including Carolyn, "Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to reintroduce you to one of the finest women I've ever had the pleasure of knowing, Denise Lasley, founder and former director of the Adabio Foundation." The applause started small but grew. People who remembered her work, people who respected what she had done. And in that moment, Denise was no longer invisible. She was seen, she was known, she was recognized.
The applause faded slowly, leaving Denise standing in the center of attention. People wanted to talk to her, to shake her hand, to reconnect. Dr. Hamilton introduced her to others who remembered her work. They asked questions. Where had she been? What was she doing now? Would she consider reviving the foundation? Each question was well-meaning, but each one reminded her of everything she had lost. Across the room, Carolyn had disappeared. One moment she was there, frozen in humiliation, and the next she was gone. Her friends stood in a confused cluster, whispering among themselves, occasionally glancing at Denise with a mixture of shame and curiosity. The joke had backfired spectacularly. The woman they had expected to laugh at had become the guest of honor. But as Denise smiled and nodded and accepted compliments, something inside her felt heavy. Yes, she had won. Yes, she had proven Carolyn wrong. Yes, she had reclaimed her dignity. But standing there in that beautiful ballroom, surrounded by wealth and recognition, she felt the weight of everything that victory couldn't fix. She excused herself politely and walked out onto the estate's terrace. The night air was cool and clean. Stars scattered across the dark sky. In the distance, the city lights twinkled like earthbound constellations. She stood at the marble railing, alone with her thoughts, and let herself feel the truth she had been avoiding. This victory was sweet, but it was also bitter, because no matter how stunning she looked tonight, no matter how many people recognized her name, she couldn't bring back her parents. She couldn't undo the betrayal that destroyed the foundation. She couldn't reclaim the 3 years she had spent invisible, broken, surviving day by day. Those years were gone. That pain was permanent, and standing here in a golden dress didn't change that. Tears gathered in her eyes, but she didn't let them fall. She had cried enough. Tonight wasn't about crying. It was about acknowledging the full truth, the victory and the loss, the triumph and the grief, the strength and the scars. "There you are," Jennifer's voice came from behind her. She had come inside after parking the car and had been watching from the edge of the ballroom. Now she walked over and stood beside Denise, not asking questions, just being present. "I won," Denise said quietly, "but it doesn't feel the way I thought it would." "Because winning doesn't erase the pain," Jennifer said gently. "It just proves you survived it."
Denise nodded, looking out at the city. "I keep thinking about my parents, about how proud they would have been tonight, and how they'll never know. I keep thinking about all the people we could have helped if the foundation hadn't fallen apart, all the lost time." Jennifer took her hand. "You can't bring back the past, but you can build a new future. That's what your parents would want, not for you to stay stuck in what was lost, but to create something new from what remains." Denise turned to look at her friend. "You think I could? Really rebuild it?" "I don't think," Jennifer said firmly. "I know. You did it once, you can do it again. And this time, you're not starting from scratch. You're starting with wisdom, with experience, with scars that taught you how to survive. That's more valuable than anything." Denise took a deep breath and felt something shift inside her chest. Not healing, not yet, but hope. Real, solid hope. "Then let's do it," she said.
Let's rebuild the Adabio Foundation. For my parents, for everyone who needs it, for me." Jennifer smiled, squeezing her hand. "That's my queen." They stood there for a moment longer, looking out at the city spread below them. Then Denise straightened her shoulders, lifted her chin, and turned back toward the ballroom. Not because she wanted more applause or recognition, but because she was ready to start conversations about the future, ready to plant seeds for what would come next. As they walked back inside together, Denise realized something profound. The crown she had been searching for, the one she thought she had lost when her life fell apart, had never been external. It wasn't in a title or a position or a foundation. It was in her heart, in her resilience, in her refusal to stay broken. And tonight, for the first time in 3 years, she was finally carrying it again. The night wouldn't erase her pain. The applause wouldn't bring back her parents. The recognition wouldn't give her back those lost years. But it would give her something just as important. A new beginning, a second chance, a reason to believe that Denise Lasley's story wasn't over. It was just starting a new chapter. And this time, she would write it on her own terms.
Denise's story reminds us that dignity is never lost, only forgotten. And sometimes all it takes is one moment, one choice, one act of courage to remember who you truly are. If this story touched your heart, if you've ever felt invisible, if you've ever had to fight to reclaim your worth, I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell me, what's your Denise moment? When did you decide to stop being invisible and step back into your power? And if you know someone who needs to hear this story today, someone who's forgotten their crown, share this video with them. Let them know they're not alone. Let them know their story isn't over. Before you go, smash that like button if you believe that no one, absolutely no one, has the right to make you feel small. Subscribe and turn on notifications because every week we bring you stories of resilience, redemption, and the power of the human spirit. Stories that remind us that we are all queens and kings, no matter what life throws at us. Remember, the world may try to make you invisible, but you were born to be unforgettable. I'll see you in the next story. Until then, keep your head high and your crown straight. Now go out there and show them who you are.